We're going to do a quick review on section 3.5. It says use the point slope form to find the equation of a line. So this whole section is giving you a new form. It's called point slope form. But before we do that, let's look at another example. If it said to write the equation given a point on the line, meaning it's a solution point 2, 5, and the slope m. So they're giving you a solution point and they're giving you a slope. And in this particular example, we want to use the slope-intercept method to write the equation of the line. Remember, the slope-intercept was y equals mx plus b that we talked about in the last section. All right? So we want to write the equation of the line. Let's plug in what we know. Well, we know the slope. So we have y equals, the slope m is 4. And really all we need is b, and we'd have the equation of the line. But remember, b, right? B is that y-intercept, 0b. Well, they didn't give us the y-intercept. This isn't zero some number. They just gave us some point on the line. So what we have to do is we have to take that point, the x and y, and plug it in for our x and y here and solve for b. So I'm going to substitute this in. The y is 5. The x is 2. And now I can solve for b and find out what that y-intercept is. So I get 5 equals 8 plus b. I'm going to subtract 8 from both sides. And I end up with b equals a negative 3. So I now know what the y-intercept is. The y-intercept is what? 0, negative 3. So now I have a point, now I have a slope and a point, which we did last section, and so I can now write this as y equals, my slope was 4, and b is a negative 3. So this here is the equation of the line in the slope-intercept form, and I use the slope-intercept method by just plugging in what information I had and solving for b. That's using the intercept method. Well, in this particular section, they're going to give you a new formula. It's called point slope formula, where you can find this equation by using that formula. So here's an example of that. Here we have, it says use the point slope form. Now normally, if they just say write an equation and give you this information, this is probably the easiest and fastest way to get the equation. But if the book tells you to use something specifically, then you need to use that. So in this particular example, they're saying use the point slope form. Well, the point slope form is this. Y minus y1 equals m times the quantity x minus x sub 1. So you're going to use this formula now to find the equation. So we're going to plug in our given information. Right, they've given us the slope 2, so I'm going to write this down, y minus y sub 1. My m is 2, x minus x sub 1. And I'm going to take my solution point and I'm going to plug in where the y sub 1 and x sub 1, I'm going to plug in this information. So this would be 3, so this is y minus 3 equals 2 times x. Remember, this is the formula is x minus, but this is a negative 1. So you got to pay close attention. This was minus 1. Remember, this means add the opposite, or what's the opposite of a negative 1? A positive 1. Okay? So this becomes a positive 1. So you got to pay close attention to those signs. Now I'm going to distribute this 2 out. So I get y minus 3 equals 2x plus 2. And my goal is to get the equation of the line in the y equals mx plus b form. So I've got to get y by itself. So I'm going to add 3 to both sides. And I get y equals 2x plus 5. I now have the equation of the line where the slope is 2. And I have the y-intercept, right? What that y-intercept, right? This is the y-intercept. Okay, so this is another way that I can find the y-intercept is by using this point slope formula. So this is what that whole section is about, is understanding this formula so that you can write the equation of the line when you're giving a slope and a solution on the line. The other problems you're going to come across is they're going to give you two solution points. So they're going to say these 2 points, 2, 1, 4, 5, are on the line. So we don't know what the slope is. They didn't give us the slope. If they'd given us the slope, we could take the slope in 1 point and do what we just did. But they didn't do that. But previously, remember, we know how to find the slope of a line, right? We can find the slope when given 2 points. We've done this before. Remember, we said the slope is the change in y divided by the change in x. We've done this before. So we have 2 points on the line. We can find the slope. Let's determine. We've got to decide. This one's going to be my point 2. This is going to be my point 1. That way that you're consistent, right? So y2, y from point 2, is a negative 5 minus the y from the first point, which is 1. Then from x from the second point is 4 minus the x from the first point is 2. We plug that in and we can now simplify. And we get a negative 6 over 2, which is a negative 3. So now we know the slope. The slope is a negative 3. So we're back to where we were just in the previous problem. We know the slope and we know one of the points. So now we can use that the point slope formula. Excuse me. Point slope formula, which is y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. We now know the slope, so I can plug that in, the negative 3 in. And we also know a point. It doesn't matter what point you use, just pick one point and plug it in. So I'm going to use this point here, 2, 1. So the y is 1. And this x is 2. And I'm going to now solve for y. So I get y minus 1 equals negative 3 times x is a negative 3x. A negative 3 times a negative 2 is a positive 6. Still solving for y, so I've got to add 1 to both sides. I get y equals a negative 3x plus 7. Here is my equation of the line. Remember, my slope was a negative 3, and this is my y-intercept, right? It's my y-intercept, so that's the equation of the line. Now I could graph this point, and I could graph this point with this slope, and you would see that all three of these points are on the same line. But in this section, they're just asking you to, they're giving you 2 points, and then they're asking you to write the equation of the line, okay? Or they're giving you the slope on a point and asking you to use this formula to write the equation of the line.